Tyon Grant-Foster is finally eligible for Mark Few and the Gonzaga Bulldogs. No thanks whatsoever to the NCAA.
You are Locked On Zags, your daily podcast on the Gonzaga Bulldogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, y'all? Welcome into the Locked On Zags podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host and longtime Gonzaga podcaster, Andy Patton, here to bring you news and updates on all things Zag athletics. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time, folks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Well, Monday was an insane day for the Gonzaga Bulldogs. We're going to break all of it down. Tyon Grant-Foster is now eligible, and the fight is over with the NCAA. We're going to talk about what happened at his preliminary injunction hearing at 2:30 on Monday afternoon, how he managed to get into the game for Gonzaga against Western Oregon, what we saw from him on the floor. We're also going to talk about the rest of that exhibition game, some more strong performances from some of Gonzaga's young players, and we're going to close out the show talking about a visit. A top 30 recruit in the 2027 recruiting class was in the building on Monday night. Dooney Johnson, will talk about him and what it meant to have him on campus to close out the show. But of course, the big storyline for Mark Few and the Gonzaga Bulldogs, after 5 months and a 2.5-hour preliminary injunction hearing. It was supposed to be an hour. It ended up taking 2.5. I think that was poetry for the fact that this situation should have been resolved many months ago and yet dragged on and on and on. So of course, a 1-hour hearing turned into nearly a 3-hour affair, but it ended how we knew or hoped and thought that it should end, with Tyon Grant-Foster having his injunction granted, meaning he is immediately eligible to play for this Gonzaga basketball program. Judge Marla Polin, a graduate of Gonzaga's law school, was the person to grant him this injunction. It was a chaotic day in the Spokane County Courthouse. For those of you who are following along on social media, some fantastic reporting by Cole Forsman of Sports Illustrated, Theo Lawson of the Spokesman Review, Andrew Quinn at Creme as well. Lots of great detail from everybody there. But the NCAA's arguments were just all over the place. It's a situation that we have been following so closely for so long. And those of you who are everyday listeners, first of all, big shout out to you. I appreciate all of you who've been hanging out throughout this offseason. We've continued to talk and speculate and kind of discuss what the NCAA's reasoning is for continuing to deny Grant-Foster eligibility and denying the appeal and generally putting up a much bigger fight around Grant-Foster's status than maybe we thought that they would, or certainly thought that they should. And yet, when it all coalesced on Monday afternoon, it was even more apparent that the NCAA just did not have much of a leg to stand on in this situation. Like, I was kind of shocked at how flimsy the arguments that they had were in favor of not granting Tyon Grant-Foster any additional eligibility. They argued a handful of things. They kept stating that he's already played 4 years. And it took a while to get them to confirm what they meant by that. They said he played 2 years at Grand Canyon, and then they said he played 2 years prior to his injuries and 2 years after his injuries. Like, okay, he played the 2 years at Grand Canyon. We know that. What are the 2 years prior that you're talking about? Because either you're counting the Kansas year, which was 2020-21, which was the COVID year, and we knew that that should not count against his eligibility, or you're counting one of his seasons at DePaul, in which would be astronomically crappy of the NCAA, because he played literally one half of a basketball game before, as Mark Few so eloquently said, literally dying because he had a heart attack and did not play the rest of that season or the entire following season. Or, and this is what it ended up being, their argument was that he played 2 years of junior college basketball. They were ignoring the Diego Pavia ruling, which came out for the Vanderbilt quarterback who sued the NCAA last year for an extra year of eligibility, saying basically I couldn't make money off of my name, image, likeness while playing in the junior college, and I should be able to recoup some of that money. The NCAA ultimately said, all right, anybody who's has junior college credits will get an additional year of eligibility in 25-26. For some reason, they meant everybody except Tyon Grant-Foster, and they just buried their head in the sand and said, we are not going to allow Grant-Foster another year because he's had 4 years to play, even though this ruling does not, there was no indication that this ruling had any kind of parameters around it. It was a baffling way that they continued to fight this. They didn't even acknowledge the Pavia ruling until very late into this hours-long hearing. There was other things they kept continuing to say, that Grant-Foster waited until the last minute to file a lawsuit. That, I will be honest, that argument kind of enraged me, because I do not understand the thought process behind saying, well, if Grant-Foster, if he didn't, if he thought he deserved an extra year, why didn't he, file a lawsuit back in February? What? Do you believe, as the NCAA, as a governing body, that the way that student athletes should handle any kind of adversity or any belief against you is to immediately sue? That cannot be the NCAA's actual belief around this system. Because what actually happened, as a reminder for those who maybe don't remember the full scope of this, is that Gonzaga submitted a waiver on June 6th, which is about a week after Grant-Foster committed to the program out of the transfer portal. That was denied by the NCAA on June 24th. Gonzaga submitted a reconsideration request on July 17th, which was denied on September 12th. Gonzaga then had an appeal submitted on September 25th, which was denied on October 17th. Tyon Grant-Foster filed his lawsuit that day. So to make an argument in a court of law that Grant-Foster should have sued the NCAA months ago is completely insane. And I am struggling to not say words that I am not allowed to say on this podcast, because I do not understand that thought process and that argument whatsoever from the NCAA. It is mystifying why they felt that saying, well, he should have sued earlier, was in any way, shape, or form a valid argument in this case. Fortunately, Judge Poland agreed. The injunction was granted right around 5 p.m. And then hijinks ensued after that as Grant-Foster and Mark Few left the courtroom. There was a lot of tears, a lot of emotion. It was beautiful to see. Grant-Foster arrived at the McCarthy Athletic Center around 5:45, 15 minutes or so before tip-off. Boy, do I wish I had been in the building for that, and his arrival, and just the noise, the booming crowd as they cheered for him as he arrived at the arena. He was in his uniform. He ended up subbing in. He ended up playing 9 minutes in this exhibition game. And look, he looked rough. He looked rough. There's not really any point in analyzing his performance, considering all of the extenuating circumstances that went into today specifically, as well as the fact that, again, he was granted that practice waiver from the NCAA back on October 1st, but when his eligibility was denied, or his appeal was denied on October 17th, that meant that practice waiver was null and void. So he only had 6 or so practices, I think it was, something like that, with the team before that was ended. So he has spent very little time around this program, with this coaching staff, with these players. He has not had that opportunity. The NCAA robbed him of that. And so getting to learn the system, getting to learn the offense, the defense, what he's asked to do in a game setting is just not something he has had the opportunity to do. We're going to dive much more into what Grant-Foster's kind of now abridged season is going to look like on a future episode. Expect that show to come out on Wednesday, looking all at the Tyon Grant-Foster situation, the angles for what it means for Gonzaga, what it means for the playing time for other players. We're going to get into that in a future episode. But the fact that he got to play in this game, again, one of his first possessions, he stole a pass in the backcourt. He stole a pass. He made a pass to Graham Ike that ended up with a left-handed flush, and the crowd just went crazy for Grant-Foster. Everybody was so happy for him. He had 1 field goal in this game, a reverse lay-in. He had a couple of points at the free throw line as well. We saw some good things, but again, this was just about this young man getting the opportunity to compete for the Gonzaga Bulldogs, getting to hear his name chanted by the crowd, knowing that he is going to suit up this season. I am so happy for this young man. I am so happy that after months and months and months, the correct decision was made, and that this very talented player who has gone through an incredible amount of adversity, will get to suit up and finish out his collegiate career with this Gonzaga program. I cannot tell you how happy I am that this is the final result after months and months and months of waiting. Well, folks, the exhibition game went great. We didn't even talk about that yet at all. Of course, we expected to win, but Gonzaga dominated, and we saw some outstanding stuff. Braden Huff looked like Drew Timme. Davis Fogel looks like a guy who needs a spot in the rotation. We're going to break that down and more, all coming up here in just a second. But first, folks, the NBA is back, and there is no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of a game or you just want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who's going to score next to those fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Gonzaga's national championship odds have remained steady at plus 3,500. Maybe FanDuel's knew something that we didn't, but if you are feeling extra enthusiastic about this team going into the year, then what are you waiting for? Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up right now and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, folks, segment 2, still Andy Patton, still Locked On Zags podcast, and we're now getting into Gonzaga's 111-53 thrashing of the Western Oregon Wolves on Monday night at the McCarthy Athletic Center, the second exhibition game for the Zags this year after they played an NAIA opponent, Northwest University, back on October 19th. This game was their final tune-up before the actual regular season begins exactly 1 week from now, when Gonzaga will take on Texas Southern, also at the McCarthy Athletic Center, Monday at 6 p.m. Pacific time. But Gonzaga got the opportunity to kind of try out some new things again, to get Grant-Foster on the floor. I think that was far and away the most important thing that came out of this game on Monday night. But we got to see some really good things from some of Gonzaga's better players and some of the players that are still fighting for an opportunity to play in this rotation. Braden Huff was outstanding in this game, 21 points. He scored those final points, his 20th and 21st points, with 15 minutes to go in the second half. So he basically did all of his damage in the first half. He was 8 of 10 in this game, 1 of 1 from 3, 4 of 5 from the line. He had 2 great assists, both of them on kickouts, one for Steele Venters 3, one for an Adam Miller 3. He looked incredible. He looks like an offensive hub, the way that Drew Timme was an offensive hub, and him and Graham Ike are going to be lethal together. Ike, 18 and 6, perfect from the field, 7 of 7, also 4 of 4 from the line. Meanwhile, Doney coming off the bench, 14 points, 10 rebounds, 6 of 7 shooting for him. What I want to do now is take a look at the 5 things that I laid out on Monday's episode of Locked On Zags, talking about what are the things that I want to see from this Gonzaga team? What are the questions that I have, the keys to the game, things of that nature. So I put them all here. We're going to talk about them here. Number 1, will we see Mario Saint-Superi find his groove? This is a big question. He hasn't really looked quite like the player that we know he's capable of being. We know it's going to take some adjustments to college basketball, and that's kind of what we saw from him in this game. He finished with just 4 points. He was 2 of 6 from the field. He missed all 3 of his 3-point attempts. He did have 4 assists and 0 turnovers, though, so certainly not a bad game from Saint-Superi. He did not start for Gonzaga in this game. I should mention the starting lineup did include Emmanuel Innocente. We will talk about him in a second. But Saint-Superi subbed in early in this game, had a few great passes. He had one play where he caught a pass. As soon as he caught the pass, he threw it behind his head to Ismaila Diani for an easy dunk. You can see the floor vision. You can see the appeal of Mario Saint-Superi. He just hasn't quite put it all together. We shouldn't expect that. He's a true freshman. While he wasn't as limited as Grant-Foster in terms of time spent with the team, it's worth remembering he didn't get to campus until late June, and then he left in mid-July for a month to go to Eurobasket. So he, all in all, has not spent that much time around this team, around this coaching staff either. And you can tell that, combined with the fact that college rules and college officials are a little bit different than what he's used to, you can see that those things are still taking him some time to adjust. Again, I say still, It's been one intra-squad scrimmage and 2 exhibition games. So it's not like there hasn't been a lot of time for Mario to get better at that stuff, but we are already starting to see it. There was a couple of broken plays where he put the ball on the deck and scored on guys very easily. He had the reverse lay-in on a really great rebound after missing a 3-pointer. Like, I thought there were some really promising signs from Mario, but yeah, I think expectations should be a little tempered for his performance early in the season. Key number 2 was whether Davis Vogel is going to be able to keep it up after a phenomenal performance against Northwest last week. And the answer is yes. Davis Vogel looked great once again. Tyon Grant-Foster being eligible means there are less minutes to go around in the wing area, in the 2, 3, 4 for this team. Davis Vogel is making that even more of a challenge for Mark Few and the coaching staff. A challenge, mind you, that they do not have an issue with. They are happy to have the issue of having too many talented players and not enough room to play them. That is a better problem than the alternative. Davis Vogel was excellent in this game. 13 points on 1 of 3 shooting because he went a perfect 9 of 9 from the free throw line. Every time Davis Vogel gets the basketball, he drives as directly as he can to the rim. If you were listening to the broadcast, Dan Dickow was describing him as a straight line driver. Greg Heister asked for some clarity on what that means. I thought it was a good explanation from Dan. But basically, Davis Vogel's not shifty. He's not trying to slow down and stop and kind of change the pace. He gets the ball and he is relentlessly attacking the rim as much as he can. And if he gets fouled, he gets fouled. He gets to the free throw line. He makes them at 100% clip. This version of Davis Vogel, the player that he has been, has to play for Gonzaga. I don't know where. I don't know how much. There's not a lot of room in this rotation right now. Clearly, Grant-Foster is not going to be tossed out to the Wolves to play 30 minutes a game. Not early in the season, maybe not at all this season. But Davis Vogel is going to have to get some minutes because even in the second half of this game, we saw some floor vision, some playmaking skills that we hadn't really seen from him yet. He had a great possession where he had a look away pass. He got the ball at the top of the key. They ran a pick and roll. He looked away at somebody else. It pulled a defender away. He made a pass to Ismaila Diani, who was wide open. Next possession in transition, he fed Noah Holland, who was cutting down the floor for an easy lay-in. If Vogel can start displaying that, some true playmaking skills in addition to the scoring and relentless rim pressure that he has, that makes him even more dangerous and makes it even more likely that he's going to play real minutes this season. Key number 3 was Emmanuel Innocente's health. We had not seen Innocente since he got hurt in the craziness in the Kennel scrimmage. He did not play in the exhibition game against Northwest. I was able to speak to him before the game, and he said, yes, I'm going to play. I'm not going to play a ton, but I was cleared a couple days ago, and I'm going to suit up. He ended up starting for Gonzaga. The starting lineup, for the record, was Braden Smith at the 1, Innocente at the 2, Steele Venters at the 3, and then Huff and Ike in the front court. I'm not going to read too much into the starting lineup for a couple of reasons. 1, the Grant-Foster situation obviously developed at the last minute. And 2, Gonzaga did a hockey sub for the first media timeout of this game. So 4 minutes in, they subbed 4 of those 5 players out. So to me, I'm like, if they were confident that this was going to be their starting lineup, I think they'd have played him a little more. Having said that, it would not shock me if Innocente and Venters are your starters at the 2 and the 3. I think that's a nice combo. You get some outside shooting and floor spacing with Venters. You get a tough-nosed point of attack defender in Innocente. You get some 3-point shooting off the bench in Adam Miller and some versatility in Grant-Foster and Worley off the bench as well. Again, lots of options for Gonzaga, not a lot of wrong ways to make this work. Innocente looked great. He looked great in this game. 6 points, 3 of 3 shooting, 3 assists, 2 boards in just 12 minutes of action. He had steals. There's multiple times in this game where he had a steal at the top of the key and then just drove all the way to the basket and scored. I truly believe Innocente could get 4 to 6 points per game just from getting steals with his relentless ball pressure at the point of attack. Obviously, the competition level is a factor, and it won't be as easy to do that in upcoming games, but he's still going to do it. He's still going to find ways to get steals, to get transition opportunities, and to score that way, and it's going to make him such a valuable player for this team. Number 4 for us was Jalen Worley's role once again. Does he play small forward? Does he play power forward? What does he look like on the floor? And again, the Grant-Foster situation means that there's less minutes to go around at the 3. And so Worley did what I expected him to do, which is every minute that he was on the floor, he was playing power forward. And it doesn't look like he's playing power forward, which is because he's so versatile as a player. There were many times where he brought the ball up the court or was playing out on the perimeter. He made some incredible passes. I believe right now that Jalen Worley is the second best passer on this team. I think in time, Mario will probably surpass him. Right now, Mario's not there in part because he's still learning the offense and still learning the ins and outs of what he is being asked to do. But Worley is a very gifted passer. He has great floor vision, and you could see the impact that he makes by playing around the rim and playing the power forward, but being a hub where he can pass the ball, he can make reads. It's just puts so much pressure on opposing defenses. His numbers don't pop out on the page. He only had 2 points, 1 of 1 shooting in this game, but he did have 4 assists and 2 turnovers. One of them was he just happened to have his foot on the baseline when he caught a pass. 15 minutes for him in this one. Again, all of those minutes coming at the backup power forward position. We didn't see much of Parker Jefferson. He played the last 5 or 6 minutes or so of this game. It's very, very clear at this point that Jalen Worley is Gonzaga's backup 4, and that is where he's going to play most, if not all, of his minutes this season. And then number 5 was another opportunity to see the freshmen and the walk-ons. We've already talked about St. Superi and Davis Fogel, so we'll talk about the other 5 freshmen / walk-ons on this roster. Parker Jefferson played a little under 5 minutes in this game, played less than everybody else except for Alonzo Metz. However, when he was on the floor, at one point the lineup was Jefferson, Holland, Orness, Joaquin Reyes-Moore, and Alonzo Metz, so the 4 walk-ons and Jefferson. In those minutes, they were force-feeding Jefferson the ball. He took 6 shot attempts in less than 4 minutes or less than 5 minutes of action, only made 2 of them, so he had 4 points and 3 rebounds. But we saw some footwork. We saw some nice stuff from him, but it's pretty clear that he is either going to redshirt or play very little this upcoming season. Not a bad thing for Mark Few, not a bad thing for Jefferson necessarily, just seeming to be the reality of the situation for him. Holland came in before Jefferson. He came in about 6:40 left in this game. He scored in transition on that nice pass from Davis Fogel. He also had a couple of points at the free throw line and a pair of rebounds. Kate Orness actually came in first out of this group at about the just before the 8-minute mark, as he came in right before that media timeout. He scored shortly after that media timeout as well. Those were his only points, 2 points on 1 of 1 shooting. He had a board and an assist as well. Q came in about 6 minutes left, picked up a pair of fouls, but didn't do anything else, missed his 2 shot attempts. And then Alonzo Metz played the final 3 minutes of the game, didn't really impact the game, but still got an opportunity to play. I have a suspicion that Metz probably will redshirt this year. Typically, first-year walk-on players don't get on the floor. We saw that last year with Orness and Lemke. We saw that 2 years ago with Joaquin Reyes-Moore. Those guys started to get onto the floor in their second years, so I would expect that's the same case for Metz as well. Well, again, Tyon Grant-Foster got the biggest round of applause when he walked into the kennel, but Dooney Johnson got himself a pretty big round of applause as well. A 2027 recruit. It is now the 3rd time Gonzaga has had an official visitor at the kennel this year. The first 2, Sam Funches and Luka Foster, committed to Gonzaga. Will Dooney join them? We're going to talk about that coming up here in just a second. But first, folks, college basketball is back, and I could not be more excited. The madness, the rivalries, the energy in the crowd, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real, actually getting tickets to games can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. And that's why I use Game Time. It's the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices without any of those surprise fees. What you see, that's what you pay. I pulled up Game Time in just a couple of taps. I saw amazing deals. It's faster, it's cheaper, and it is less stressful than any other way that I've bought tickets. And we say this a lot. Prices go down the closer you get to the game. That is true for Gonzaga taking on Oklahoma at the Spokane Arena on November 8th. Cheapest tickets used to be over $100, used to be over $90. You can find tickets right now, section 223, $88 a piece. So folks, take the guesswork out of buying college basketball tickets by using Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Terms apply. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. All right, folks, segment 3, still Andy Patton, still Locked On Zags, and we're closing out the show talking about what would typically be the dominating conversation regarding an exhibition game where you kind of figured the result wasn't going to be in question, which is that Gonzaga had a recruit on campus. And it wasn't widely talked about coming into this visit. Usually, you'll find out that a player is setting an official visit maybe 3 weeks ahead of time, sometimes 6, 8 weeks ahead of time, months in advance. I think we knew that Sam Funches was coming for craziness in the kennel like over 2 months before that visit actually happened. But in this case, it was all quiet on the Western Front until very suddenly we find out that Dooney Johnson, who Gonzaga has been pursuing for a long time, it's not like he was completely off the radar for Gonzaga, but we didn't know that he was going to be on campus for an official visit. And we certainly didn't know that he was going to be on campus for an official visit until we found out, until he was already there on campus. Dooney Johnson, for those of you who don't know, he's a 6'5" guard from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He's the 41st ranked player in the 2027 class over at 247 Sports. However, ESPN is higher on him. They have him 28th in the class, while Rivals has him number 30. This is Gonzaga's first visitor in the 2027 class. Clearly, the team is turning their attention to that recruiting class after already landing 3 recruits in the 2026 class, all this month, in the month of October. That would be, of course, 6'5" German guard Jack Cahill. That would also be 7-foot center Sam Funches. That would also be 6'5" wing Luka Foster. Again, Funches was at craziness in the kennel. He committed a few weeks later. Luka Foster was at the Northwest exhibition game. He committed about a week later. And then now Dooney Johnson attends Gonzaga's exhibition game against Western Oregon on Monday night. Many other programs in the mix for Johnson. He does not have a top list yet, but we know Wisconsin had him on an official visit recently. He's also been pursued by Marquette, Indiana, and Missouri, among a handful of others. And the kennel did what the kennel does. There were we want Funches chance at craziness. There were we want Foster chance against Northwest. And there were we want Dooney chance multiple times in this game against Western Oregon. First heard it at the under 4 in the first half, heard it again at the under 16 in the second half, and then heard it again with about 2.5 minutes to go in this game. I think there was one right at the start of the game as well. The kennel's done it before. They did it with, again, the other 2 players that committed this month in Foster and Funches. We'll see if they make it work. I suspect Dooney Johnson's not in a major hurry to make a commitment, but you never know. You never know. Maybe he's going to be enthralled by this opportunity. And again, Gonzaga has been very actively pursuing Dooney Johnson. He was the first recruit that we knew publicly was contacted by Gonzaga when that period opened up in July. And July is the first time that coaches and staff were allowed to contact 2027 recruits. And Gonzaga made a call to Dooney Johnson pretty much right away. They had an offer for a scholarship out to him by mid-July. And by late July, they sent Gonzaga assistant coach Zach Norvell all the way out to Milwaukee to do an in-home visit with Dooney Johnson. And the decision to send Norvell was intentional. Obviously, he is on staff. He is a coach. He is a recruiter. This is his job. This is what he does. But Gonzaga sent Norvell because Dooney Johnson's a 6'5", tough, physical, 2-way wing from the Midwest. And Zach Norvell, as you may recall, was a 6'5", tough, physical, 2-way wing from the Midwest. Dooney Johnson, of course, from Milwaukee, Norvell from Chicago. But I think that they sent him in order to say, hey, this is an avenue that you can have success. Adam Miller recently spoke about this in an interview with Gonzaga Nation on SI, where he basically said, like, Norvell's my guy, and like him having success, him going to Spokane, him making it to the NBA from Gonzaga was what made me want to go to Gonzaga. So Norvell's influence has already helped Gonzaga with pursuing players from the Midwest and bringing them out to Spokane. It seems like they're trying to use that strategy again to bring Dooney Johnson out to Spokane. And for good reason. Dooney Johnson's an excellent, excellent scorer at Peach Jam, which is a prominent summer basketball event for high school players. He dropped 30 points in his first game. And again, this is competing against the other best high school players in the country. In 2 games at Peach Jam, Dooney Johnson got to the free throw line 25 times. So he averaged 12 plus free throw attempts per game. Also made him at 84% clip, 21 out of 25. This kid is good. He's physical. He loves to get to the free throw line. He's a good scorer. He's a tough defender. There is a lot to like about who Dooney Johnson is, what play style he has, and it is very clear that Gonzaga is highly invested in getting this young man out to Spokane on a permanent basis. Gonzaga has 5 targets known so far in the 2027 recruiting class. Dooney Johnson, of course, the one they are the most actively pursuing, but there are 4 others as well, including DeMarcus Henry, a 6'6" wing who is playing at Compass Prep in Arizona, the same high school that Davis Fogel played his senior year at. DeMarcus Henry is the 16th ranked player in the 2027 class. Jalen Davis, the 6'3" guard from Bremerton, Washington. He is the 18th ranked player in the class. Gonzaga has already made him a scholarship offer. 6'10" big man Darius Wobbington, 31st ranked player in the class. He is from Phoenix area, was just recently on an official visit at Washington, is also being heavily pursued by our friend Tommy Lloyd over at Arizona. And then last, Gene Roebuck III, a 6'5", very big, kind of burly wing from La Mirada, California. Roebuck is the 48th ranked player in the 2027 class. So we've seen Gonzaga, they made their moves in the 2026 class. They went from 0 recruits to 3 recruits in about a 3-week span, and they've already turned their attention, heavily pursuing talent in the 2027 class as well. It's not to say that 2026 is over. The team is expected to have Cameron Holmes, a 4-star wing, on campus November 8th for their game against Oklahoma. I'll be curious to see if that visit ends up happening now that Gonzaga has landed Luka Foster or not. But it does certainly seem like Gonzaga is now prioritizing who they can find in those 2027 recruiting class to get a commitment from before they get into the season here a week from today. That is going to wrap it up for me today, folks, here on the Locked On Zags podcast. Thank you so much to those of you who have made this show your first listen or your first watch of the day, and those of you who have joined us live here on YouTube at Monday, close to 9 p.m. Pacific time. Appreciate all of you hanging out here on the show. Going to have another show for you all on Wednesday. That's going to break down all of the Tyon Grant-Foster situation, what his role is going to look like this upcoming season. We'll have my bold predictions for you on Halloween to close out the week. And then next week, boom, we are talking real count in the standings basketball, starting with that game November 3rd against Texas Southern. I cannot wait for the real game previews to be back for you all in a little less than a week. Thanks again, folks. Have a fantastic rest of your day. And today, more than ever, we got to end with a very hearty Go Zags.